Welcome to Media Melanie Talks TV. I'm Melanie, and today I'm back to talk about Poker Face Season 2, Episode 5. This one is called Hometown Hero, and I have a special guest joining today. But before I bring him on, just some normal housekeeping here. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel. I am finishing out coverage of The Handmaid's Tale final season and Your Friends and Neighbors as well on Apple TV+. And then looking ahead to next month, The Buccaneers on Apple TV+, and in July, Dexter Resurrection, along with The Summer I Turned Pretty. But right now, we are going to talk baseball in this 5th episode of Poker Face, which I think was fantastic. I'm going to bring on my guest, Craig Elsten. Hey, Craig, how's it going?
Great, Media Melanie. Good to chat with you.
Yes, you as well. And it's been a while. Of course, we were doing this Crossing Stream segment on 97.3 on your radio show. That was a lot of fun. And we also covered our top shows of 2024 in a video and kind of ranked the best shows of last year. And here we are again, Craig.
Here we are again. Indeed, I miss our weekly get-togethers, but I mean, I guess I miss that paycheck too. So, that's what it is. Corporate radio sucks. But it's great to be here. It's great to chat with you. I've been really thinking about the Crossing Streams brand and does it need to come back? And so having a chance to get a chance to cross streams with you and talk about Poker Face, and you got me screener access, which I just have to say, and I know we'll get into it, but I have a friend who wrote on this season of the show, and he didn't get screener access. Oh. So I was watching the show before him, and wow. I thought that was really hilarious and unearned.
Right? Hey, I mean,
but hilarious nonetheless.
It worked out well for us, I suppose, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It couldn't have worked out better.
Yes, absolutely. And Craig, we are both into sports, right? I am a stage manager for MLB, San Diego Padres, and some other sports. And you co-host the Padres Hot Tub podcast. So we are both in this whole baseball sports sphere of things. And really, this could not have been a more perfect episode for us to talk about together.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And when you told me what it was, I got excited. But also, I have to say, a little trepidatious in that a lot of times I think baseball parodies wind up being really tropey, really bad. A lot of times written by somebody who maybe has a passing love of baseball or whatever, or it got noted to death or something along the way, and it winds up frustrating me, because I've been covering baseball in one way or another professionally for almost 30 years. It's one of those things that I've got a little higher standard, but I will happily say, mild spoiler, this one completely aced the test.
Yes, a home run, if you will, Craig, right? And we have been texting back and forth about this. And as soon as you watched this, you texted me and said, oh, this is a good one. And I was happy to hear that you liked it as well, because I felt the same way, especially coming off of episode 4, the Gator Joe one. That was not my favorite of the season. And at the end of the video, we are going to rank our guest stars and the episodes and whatnot. But I'm just happy we're kind of back on the upswing after the whole alligator situation of things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you. And the funny thing is, I was really happy after episode 3 because I felt like the one thing that I didn't particularly love about the first couple of episodes was here come the hitmen with the silencers shooting bullets and missing Charlie, just over and over again. And it's kind of cartoonish and silly, to be honest. And it's making light of somebody trying to kill you, which I think would be, kind of a serious thing.
Right.
So I was happy to put that aside and be like, okay, cool. Now she has free reign to roam the country, because honestly, how much did we really need the contrivance after all? Once you got her into the car and on the move, I think everyone is willing to accept the idea that each week it's a different place, each week it's a different cast, each week Charlie's got a different job, and that's the show. It's almost like I was trying to think about it, why do I really like this show? And to me, Poker Face is like an amusement park ride, that you really enjoy, one that you love, one of your favorite ones, because you're willing to wait for it. But it's going to have like the same twists and turns almost every time, but it's executed in a way that you enjoy. And so you're happy to take the ride, and then you're happy to take the ride again, and again and again. And that's why I make that analogy, because it's like, what's coming. Pretty much, at the beginning, someone's going to get murdered. In the middle, we're going to find out how Charlie got there. At the end, she's going to solve it, So we know every twist of the ride, but we enjoy it nonetheless.
We do. And to your point, I think that's something this show does well, is leaning into this anthology format. And I really couldn't agree with you more about getting rid of the more serialized ongoing storyline, because we really had to suspend disbelief quite a bit. Like, how many times can this one person get away from all of these bullets, and how many times is this person going to be inserted into a murder case? And I'm more willing to suspend disbelief for the latter one. And I've compared this to Only Murders in the Building in that same vein, in terms of, how many murders can like one building have? Same with Charlie. How many murder cases can she have? But now it seems like the new ongoing thing is this voice of Good Buddy, of course, voiced by Steve Buscemi. Now, do you think that is going to pay off in a way where we actually get to see him on screen? I sure hope so, because Steve Buscemi is just fantastic.
I can only imagine a season finale Angel Rescue, from Steve Buscemi. The classic Charlie's in trouble, somebody shows up out of nowhere, and it winds up being him. That could be, I figure you'd save that pop for the season finale. And I will say for the audience, even though we did have screeners, I watched to this and then I stopped. And that's because Poker Face isn't a show you have to binge. Like I just said, it's kind of the same ride every time. So it's one thing to love the Matterhorn. It's another thing to ride it 4 times in a row. Right. The fourth time you might be ready to sit on a bench for a little while or get a caramel apple or something, So I like it once a week because I feel like that refresh time kind of regenerates the batteries for Charlie's escapades.
It does, and it's a lot of fun to watch Natasha Lyonne in this role in general. And the show is entertaining, and really anytime I get screeners, I try to avoid watching ahead anyway, because I try to bring the authenticity to my reviews. And I feel like a lot of times reviewers will binge the whole season and inadvertently spoil something or form these theories that are actually based on something they've already watched. So to your point, yes, I've only watched up to this episode as well, and I really look forward to this every week. It is so entertaining. Did you notice in here that part of Charlie's justification for going and getting an office job was because she binged The Office, which of course is a property of NBC, and they have a new spinoff coming out called The Paper. So I thought that was actually a pretty clever type of explainer to justify Charlie in this new role in this office, which led to her getting hit by the baseball and then, of course, inserting herself into this murder investigation.
I didn't even think about that, but of course, the devious corporate synergy that she binged The Office. Well, where do you binge The Office, I might wonder? Oh, it's available right here on the Peacock app, the same place I am right now watching Poker Face. Why? How wonderful is that? It's essentially the same thing as product placement, as if you pulled up a LaCroix or a bubbly or something and started, held it to the camera and started drinking.
You took the words right out of my mouth with product placement. This is exactly what it was, and it was really smart, and you didn't even catch it. So it wasn't done in an overt way, and I always appreciate that, a little commercial within the show. And Peacock's got some great programming. And will you be watching The Paper, Craig, when it does come out?
I'll give it a try. Why not?
Yeah, it looks like it could be fun. Let's talk about the guest stars that we saw in this episode. Of course, Simon Rex as Rocket Russ Waddell. I think that he did a great job playing this kind of washed-up pitcher who lost his fastball. But you know who I really loved in this episode, Craig, was Carol Kane as Lucille. I thought she was a really fun character.
I love Carol Kane and everything she does. I love the fact that she's still rolling and is able to bring that same kind of energy that she does to each one of her roles. She was terrific, absolutely. And to Simon Rex, I thought he did a great job of physically inhabiting what a veteran starting pitcher might look like. He's tall. He got himself in the right kind of shape, like not super muscular shape, but like I bought him being a grizzled old ball player, and thought that he, even down to the weather beaten suntan, like, he really kind of nailed a lot of the aspects of that part. But I thought in specific, something that, for example, the young whiz kid pitcher up from the low minors did not do, in my opinion, was like look like an actual pitcher on the mound, look like he could actually repeat that delivery and that it might lead to a strike. Like, that was pretty good. Now, his strikes were 83 and 79 until he regained his mojo, so to speak. But it looked more realistic to me.
He didn't seem like he really had the command, Felix, right? Especially when you're looking at side by side next to Rocket Russ. Another guest star, Craig, in this episode that was just fantastic, BJ Novak, in the whole acid trip situation, coming back as the ghost of baseball acid past and Charlie's little hallucination. I thought that was really funny, and the cartoon nature of it all. It was absurd, but it was a lot of fun to watch.
I mean, I thought we had already tapped out all the acid humor when we went through the Felix Domingo Dock Ellis, saga there. But in fact, we didn't. We had a Yellow Submarine interlude that was going to pop up halfway through. And I was honestly laughing my ass off through that. And then seeing BJ Novak just seemingly randomly pop up, although Office alum, I guess. I should be just noting all of he's probably still got a deal with them. Like, you could guest appear in any NBC product, going forward for years. But yeah, I thought he was hilarious. His get up was hilarious. And that was one of the highlights of the episode for me. I mean, that was like, as soon as she started chewing the gum, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And
yep. That was a lot of fun. Now, speaking of other kind of absurd, humorous things in this episode, there are a lot of funny baseball team names out there in the minor leagues. And in fact, this team is called the Cheesemongers. Their stadium is Velvety Canned Cheese Park. The cheese humor throughout this, from the PA announcer to the mascot, just absurd, but I really enjoyed it. And Craig, what are some of the names of these kind of minor league teams that do have more out there team names? And which ones do you like?
So there's a rich tradition in minor league baseball, and especially the last 20 years or so, of you've got your team name and then you've got another name that you may adopt for a weekend or for a couple of homestands or whatever. So, like, I would say if you're talking about a generic minor league name, the Albuquerque Isotopes is one that I love because of the Simpsons connection to that.
Yeah.
And they literally have a really cool, they play at Isotopes Park in Albuquerque. I've been there. That's great. I love the hat of the Chattanooga Lookouts, which is kind of like the eyes emoji, like the, look, big eyes emoji. But the Binghamton Rumble Ponies in Binghamton, New York, they rename every year, and last year they created my all-time favorite name, which I am, if you're watching the video, wearing, which is the Binghamton Grumble Pugs.
Oh.
And as a proud pug owner, the Grumble Pugs, holding a bat in between and betwixt their three snouts there, that becomes my all-time favorite. So Grumble Pugs.
I love that you brought the wardrobe to this video, Craig. I did, of course, wear my San Diego City Connect jersey here, Xander Bogaerts, but I mean, you really tied in your shirt and hat for this, so thanks for that. Just really bringing the branding. Solid.
Well, and then, hey, listen, I want to tell you, when I rewatched the episode today to prepare for the podcast, did a little freeze frame research. I was unable to find out the name of the league. Maybe on a third viewing, somewhere along the way, the PA announcer drops the name of the low minor league they're in. But obviously it is I would say, high single A Southern league. And here at one point, right before Rocket Russ Waddell takes the mound for his final start, He's in the dugout, kind of deep breathing, like centering himself. And there's a slow pan in, and right next to it is a giant schedule for the cheesemongers. And it lists the names of all the teams in the league. So
I completely missed that, Craig. I completely missed that.
So here are the teams that the cheesemongers do battle with. The Black Mountain Poetics, the Augusta Duffers. Okay, Augusta, Georgia, the home of the Masters, duffing the ball. So the Augusta Duffers. The Fort Smith Chickadees. The Houston Sombreros. That ranks last for me. Why does Houston have a single A team and a major league team? Unless there's another Houston. Maybe there's a Houston, Mississippi that I'm unaware of, in which case, full marks. Full marks for the Riders, if that's the case. The Lake Charles Crawdads. There's your Louisiana team. The Raleigh Bluebonnets. The Tennessee Moon Pies. And the last one on the list, Van Morrison's favorite team, the Tupelo Honeys.
Those are some pretty good team names. Are those real team names or no?
No, those are not real teams.
Okay, I was going to say, because I was looking it up trying to figure it out. Because, I mean, like I was saying before, there's all these crazy names. What are the Savannah Bananas, by the way? What league are they in? Are they minor league or?
They are their own league.
Are they like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball? Is that kind of their deal or?
Melanie, it's 100% their deal. That is exactly it. The Savannah Bananas are the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. They play banana ball. Where if a fan in the stand catches a foul ball, the batter's out, and all these, and they do dance routines in between pitches. And I think there's 3 or 4, I forget. They keep developing them like other teams that the Bananas play. And yeah, hilarity and madcap mischief ensues. And I assume the Bananas win most of the time, but I don't know if, like the Globetrotters, it's preordained. I don't know that. I also am on a waiting list. I think they're coming to Petco, aren't they?
You know, I may have heard that actually on the radio. I'm not sure when, and maybe that's why the Savannah Bananas have been on my radar.
Yeah, I remember when it came out in the winter, I put my name on the waiting list for it because they're touring the country this year. So anyways, a little Savannah Bananas detour. But yeah, the Tupelo Honeys, Van Morrison famous song, Tupelo Honey. So that was fun. Before
we get into the Dock Ellis lore of all this, tell me a little bit about your partner at the Padres Hot Tub Podcast who wrote in season 1. What episode did they write on, Craig?
Season 2. So Rafi Cantor is actually in the credits of episode 205, the one that we are, he was in the credits of 203 as well as writer assistant. But he was in the writer's room. Rafi was in the writer's room for season 2, as a writer, not like sitting there on the wall serving coffee.
Right.
He was one of the writers for the show. He will be officially credited with writing episode 210. So 210 will say written by Rafael Cantor. But the writers room, everyone's working on each script. They're all to some extent team efforts. And then furthermore, he was after the writers room closed, he was brought by the production out to New York to help in the shooting of 203 and 205, which were both shot in upstate New York. So Whack-A-Mole and this one, I'm not exactly sure which ballpark I know he's saving a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff for us for this week when it comes out. So I'm sure he'll tell me, but he was at the ballpark. He showed me some of the pictures of like him sitting with Carol Kane and the picture of the little cheesemonger idol that everyone touches on the way out on the belly, and some of the other stuff from behind the scenes. So yeah, Rafi, I knew that for a long time before he could even talk about it, and then he's in a different writer's room right now that I can't talk about, but for a show that you'll review next year, guaranteed.
Oh, excellent! I can't wait to find out what that is, Craig.
Yeah, but so it's really exciting to see his wings develop and to start to fly. But yeah, so he was a big part of this. In fact, Rafi named all the ball players.
Really?
Yeah, and he may have named all of those teams. I have to double check if he did all the team names, but he named all the ball players, and most of which you don't ever hear their names. But one that you do is kind of a joke. The center fielder with the gold grill at
Carl?
the end, Carl. His
I
last
love
name's Sandberg.
Carl.
He's Carl Sandburg, the poet.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even track that. That's funny. He was one of my absolute favorites. What an idiot, getting the grill, doing the wrong math in the notebook.
Yeah,
Fantastic
so they named him after one of
character.
the most famous poets, Carl Sandburg.
That is hilarious. What a fun job as a writer, being able to pick out the names. And if he did, in fact, also name those team names, what a lot of fun. And he just totally nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like a beautiful day to me. Like, hey, today we're going to decide all this completely random BS that's going to be funny. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm an invested viewer in Poker Face. I do have that bias, but of course I always bring my repertorial edge. But I legitimately loved this episode, so that's where we stand.
Let's talk about Dock Ellis, because the first time I watched this episode, I mean, I like baseball, I'm a fan. I did not realize Dock Ellis was an actual real person they were referencing. And when I Googled it and I saw that he pitched that no-hitter on acid and it was in San Diego, I just about lost it, Craig. I was like, this episode could not be more perfect for us to cover together.
In fact, there's a great documentary about Dock Ellis called No, a Dockumentary, D-O-C-K, for D-O-C-K Ellis, Dock Ellis. I believe it debuted on Max. The way Max erases shows, I'm not sure. I'm seeing it streaming on Prime Video according to IMDb. So you could probably go find that if you really. I mean, it was well done too. That documentary was well done. But Dock Ellis was a pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates in the late 60s and early 70s, who was quite a free spirit. In fact, not to get completely all the way into it, but Kurt Bavacqua, who later was a San Diego Padre and has been a Padres broadcaster around the team. I used to be on the radio with Kurt a lot in the 2010s, and he told me a different story of when he was on the Pirates with Dock Ellis, and they were facing the Cincinnati Reds at the time, called the Big Red Machine, the best team in the league. And I forget what the perceived slight was, but Doc told Kurt in warm-ups while they were just out stretching in the outfield that he was going to basically hit every batter in the Reds lineup until he got thrown out of the game. And then you could go look it up. He went and did just about exactly that. He hit like 4 of the first 5 batters or 4 out of 6 batters. And he got thrown out of the game.
Wow, that is crazy. And actually, I work with Tony Bavacqua, who is Kurt's son. So that's kind of a funny tie-in there.
Yeah. So as I remember it a little bit from the documentary, the background, like he was visiting a girlfriend in LA and had screwed up. It was his day to pitch. He thought it wasn't his day to pitch. And was on a bender and then dropped acid like in the afternoon for a fun, and found out he drove down to San Diego and faced the San Diego Padres for the Pittsburgh Pirates while he was tripping. And real talk, he threw a no-hitter on June 12th, 1970. Now, he was not dominant. That's one thing that he was dominant in that he didn't give up any hits. Like, he walked a bunch of people. He hit a bunch of people.
It was not a perfect game by any stretch of the mind.
It was not a perfect game. He said, here's a quote that he said. He said, the psychedelic compound seemed to leave trails behind the baseball that actually helped him place the ball. He said, quote, I was zeroed in on the glove, but I didn't hit the glove too much. I remember hitting a couple batters and the bases were loaded 2 or 3 times. The ball was small sometimes. The ball was large sometimes. Sometimes I saw the catcher. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I tried to stare the hitter down and throw while I was looking at him. I chewed my gum until it turned to powder. They said I had about 3 or 4 fielding chances. I remember diving out of the way of a ball I thought was a line drive. I jumped, but the ball wasn't hit hard and it never got to me.
Wow, that is great. And I heard that he also said he was high as a Georgia pine. And let me ask you this, Craig. Do you think that Felix did a good job of playing somebody on drugs?
I thought he did a very funny comedic job.
Okay.
You know, I thought he did the job that you should do for a show like this. Talk to the ball's talking to you, you know, like spinning around, all of it. I thought it was
Touching his
hilarious.
face, all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, getting very tactile. Yeah. No, I thought he did do a good job. And I love how you know, I think it was Buford, the other guy who spiked, you know, how then Waddell is telling him, like, oh, you Dock Ellis him. He goes, yeah, I Dock Ellis the shit out of him, thinking it was a good thing.
Having no idea they just totally screwed up their bet.
Yeah. No, he threw a new no-hitter. It took him to a new level.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, it's a really, really funny callback in that I think this was a perfect choice by the room, because on one level, if you don't know anything about this, just the idea that someone is taking acid and pitching in a game and succeeding is funny. That's just like objectively humorous.
Yes.
So the concept is funny to begin with. And then the fact that you can actually tie it back to a real life thing that actually happened in Major League Baseball, June 12, 1970, is the type of thing that makes a baseball fan like me go through the roof and go, oh, Dock Ellis, ah! Like, you know, you just know where it's going at that point. But they executed it beautifully, I thought.
It was a very smart choice. And speaking of references to things in real life, how about the players betting on themselves losing? Do you think this is a slight jab at Shohei's agent and everything that happened with that betting scandal?
What I wanted to know is how the hell a team that's lost 29 in a row has 22-1 odds against losing 5 more in a row. Like, where would you find that line? That was probably the most unrealistic part, other than the PA announcer of the entire episode, was that they could get 22-1. They should be getting 2.2-1, if that, you know, because them losing should be, you know, almost a guarantee. They're gigantic underdogs every game. But I think a little bit, you know, gambling on baseball. Pete Rose, it's another name that's been in the news of late. You know, Shohei, maybe. Yeah,
I mean, technically, it wasn't him doing the bets, technically, I guess.
As far as we know.
As far as we know.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine Rafi holding his hand up in the back of the room going, what about Shohei? But, yeah, I mean, honestly, to me, if you even took it on a serious turn, gambling is a major issue. And it's not as much minor league baseball as it is like college athletics, where a kid on a low Division I team's bench could have a parlay based on his points and rebounds. You know, whether the 7th guy scores 4.5 points or not. And that's where corruption is so easy to take place. But I mean, a situation like this, you could very well imagine a team, you know, making that decision. And I thought the show did a good job of saying, like, this is explicitly the wrong thing to do. And then they all go on that path and do it anyway.
Yeah, sacrilege, I think one of the players said at one point when they were coming up with this whole plan. Now, let me just circle back really quick to the drug situation of it all. Are you watching The Studio right now, Craig?
I am, although I'm I think I'm through 7.
Okay, so you haven't watched the mushrooms episode yet. That aired.
There's a mushroom episode?
There is, Craig. It actually streamed last week, and what a week for drugs on television. And I was going to ask you if you thought the portrayal of all of the people on mushrooms in that episode was comparative to the picture here. And I'm just going to say, I think that episode of The Studio that you will be watching soon was quite hilarious. And please text me when you're done and let me know your thoughts.
Okay, I will. And the other one that it brought to mind was Zon McLarnon tripping out on reservation dogs. I don't know if you remember that particular episode when he tripped on something and he didn't intend to, and then hilarious. So usually these episodes are very, very funny.
Yes.
And usually the somebody at least in the room has taken enough drugs to make sure that it hits the right notes.
Yes, I'm always interested if the actual actors playing these parts have done these drugs before to be able to lend a little bit of personal credibility to it. But I think for the most part, they probably just have a lot of fun with it. So, and to your point in the writer's room, there's probably one at least who can help hit those marks. So that makes sense. Now, let me ask you this. Do pitchers really use portable barometers to help dial in their pitches with the weather? Is that an actual thing? I've never heard that before.
The fact that it's in there makes me feel like they pulled that from something real.
Okay.
And while I don't know that specifically minor league pitchers walk around with barometers, pocket barometers, certainly there is plenty of sports science on the way the ball moves at various altitudes and various levels of humidity, to the point that if you're not a baseball fan, you may not know there are actually humidors stored at all 30 Major League Baseball parks, where Major League Baseball requires that the baseballs be stored, the game baseballs be stored in the humidor, and so that they are all of a uniform humidity, in a uniform condition, the baseball. And this was originally installed in Coors Field in Denver because it's over a mile high altitude there, and the ball would fly like it had springs inside of it. And so they used the humidor to essentially dampen the balls, and make them slightly less, make them fly a little bit less. But later than that, a handful of years ago, they were put in all 30 ballparks for uniformity. So every ballpark in Major League Baseball has a humidor to regulate the condition and the pressure of the ball. So these types of things that seem idiotic are actually the types of things that in a multi-billion-dollar industry, teams spend tens of millions of dollars researching to try and figure out exactly what they need to do to enhance performance.
I had no idea about the humidors. Thank you for that. That is a really fun fact. And I guess to your point, they probably are basing that whole barometer thing on something in real life. But wow, the humidor of it all. Did not know that was a thing.
Yeah, and a curve would act differently at a higher, pressure than it would at a lower pressure. Like what he's saying, what Felix Domingos is saying right there is actually, pretty accurate sports science, even though it's being played for laughs.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if it was real or not. And thank you for clarifying that. And now we all know about the humidors and the balls as well, which I don't know if that's common knowledge, Craig. So good little tidbit there. So something I've been tracking for each episode is how long it takes for us to actually see Charlie Kale on our screen. And in episode 4, it was 19 minutes, and it was also 19 minutes here, which really just lends itself, Craig, to the strength of these individual anthology-like stories and the fact that we don't even need to have our main character in there until sometimes almost halfway through these episodes.
Yeah, that's something that really, really stood out to me, and especially on rewatch. And as you said, it's like 19 minutes. And then the first 4 minutes that you're dealing with Charlie, she's not even in the same job yet.
No.
So the entire time that she's a part of the cheesemongers, to the point that she's riling up the crowd and getting Rocket Waddell to throw that one last 100-mile-an-hour heater that's going to indict him, essentially. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, they only spend maybe 15 minutes interacting in the entire episode. And that's actually something I appreciate about Poker Face, is that, again, it's it's kind of a thrill ride. You're going to go up and then you're going to go down, it's very straightforward. And indeed, every one of them is hermetically sealed in their own little humidor, their own little creative humidor. And so you've got these great mini teleplays. And then it always becomes, okay, well, now after the commercial break, how's Charlie going to find her way into this mess? And that's part of the joy of the whole thing, is kind of not the whodunit, but how's she going to wind up here?
Right. I love the formula. I love getting introduced to her where we already know how the crime has been committed, and then reverse engineering it with her involvement and this special gift of being able to tell when people are lying, which is definitely something we also need to suspend disbelief for. But once we get over that and just take it at face value, it's a really fun little gimmick for this character and helps her with this whole case of the week investigating. And so far Charlie hasn't found a case that she can't close. So I'm interested to see, will one of these weeks, will Charlie fail? Will something go wrong? I don't know.
Oh, I think they're playing toward that. We saw a tease of that with, I think it's Justin Yin in the trailer, trying to fool her. But I also enjoy aspects of that week to week. Like in this episode, she's not trying to chase down a crime. It's casual things that she confirms that makes her think it's not, that when Russ talks to her at the bar and says, my fastball's gone, it's not coming back. Like, she's like, okay, he was telling the truth then, so her superpower is something she can't turn off, right? She can't, but she can be fooled by speech that elides the truth instead of lying.
Right. And we saw that a little bit with the Felicity Price situation back in episode 1 with all of the characters that Cynthia Erivo played, because she was telling the truth that, her dad died in a car accident, but since it wasn't actually Felicity Price and she wasn't in the car, it was a lie. So I do appreciate how they're kind of playing with it a little bit and not making it quite so straightforward every single time.
Yeah. Otherwise it's just, okay, how good of a Columbo imitation are we going to get this time? And they don't do that, and so I really appreciate that.
You know what else I wanted to ask you, Craig? Carl, we talked a little bit about that character with the grill and the long hair. Did you happen to catch Duster, the new crime thriller on Max? Because apparently he's on that show at least for 1 or 2 episodes, I believe.
No, not yet, but I look forward to it now. All right.
Oh. Yeah, it's a little bit pulpy, I would say, but it's kind of fun. It's got Josh Holloway from Lost, and it's by J.J. Abrams from Lost, and I wasn't getting Lost vibes from it at all. It takes place in the 70s, and there's the fast car and all that stuff, but now I'm going to keep my eyes open for this character who played this Carl. I think he was one of the best, and the fact that his name is Carl Sandburg is just the cherry on top of it all, especially for such an educated person and author, and then to have this character Carl be just the complete opposite.
And from the baseball nerd side, because the first thing is you see the back of his jersey at one point when he's screwing up and it said Sandberg, and I'm like, oh, because if you are a big baseball fan, older fan, or someone of my generation, Ryne Sandberg was the Cubs Hall of Fame second baseman when I was growing up, and he was a long time, multi-decade presence in the game. I'm like, oh, okay, Sandberg like Ryne Sandberg. No, Sandberg like Carl Sandburg. That's one of those, again, there's levels to this. There's layers to the joke. You don't even have to get it, and then you can actually get it 3 times, depending on what level you're at.
And that's what makes this so appealing, to your point before, of you don't even need to know the backstory about Dock Ellis to appreciate this show for what it is. So the fact that they do have these layers that you can peel back if you want to, or to, or not, and it still works either way for everybody. It really does have kind of this universal appeal. And with it being Case of the Week, it's easy to watch. You don't have to be paying attention for all of these sometimes monotonous, ongoing, serialized storylines that can really bog a show down. And we're just not getting that here.
Yeah, and they also, just to kind of keep progressing forward, they also mix up the gotcha moments as well. This time the gotcha moment is Charlie checking out the errant pitching machine called Rambo, which is established early on will occasionally misfire, but also establishes early on that it doesn't throw very hard, because there's, in the very opening scene when Carol Kane is showing it to her, there's a radar gun in the background popping like low 60s. And then Waddell is there and they're talking, and she says, oh, how'd you get your fastball? Because my fastball's, never coming back. And she goes, bullshit. And it's different. It's different. The way she says it is kind of like a fan would say to a player, like, bullshit, you're going to get it back, but we know she's caught him in a lie. And then he goes, I wish it wasn't, Charlie, like that. But we know. So that was really fun, because it's the same note, but it's not played the same way on the piano every single show.
Absolutely. And if he had just kept his mouth shut and stopped talking at that point and just walked out, he may have not found himself to be in such trouble. And something that really got me, though, was the fact that these players who won all this money, they're being so ostentatious about it. Coming in, let's go to the strip club, wearing the fur coat, Carl getting his new grill. Can we not just pretend like we didn't just win all this money and try to get away with it. I thought that was a little bit too obvious. But on the same token, some of these people aren't maybe necessarily the brightest, and maybe it didn't occur to them, hey, maybe not wear a fur coat and, talk about going to the strip club. So I don't know. I thought that was a little bit silly, but it's fine.
Well, I mean, we can kind of head into that zone of where, they got silly. I mean, absolutely. The whole idea is preposterous.
Yes.
As Charlie says herself when she's talking to the scout in the stands, or whoever the guy was that she winds up chatting up at the bar, she says, well, this is the easiest thing. Just check their accounts. Like this would be the most easily solved crime kind of ever. In fact, someone would have known that the bet was placed, even though they said they went through a go-between because it was like 5% to the guy who placed the bet. But yeah, that was obviously you wouldn't show up in a mink coat. Neither would you pick up the pitcher's notebook and write 3.1 million divided by 5.
Literally never.
But this is a comedy show, so. All of these things are fine along those lines, right? Like, Charlie is a ball girl, fired instantly. The second she pulls out her vape pen,
the vape pen, the deputy ball girl, and no ballpark anywhere would they just allow a fan to be running onto the field. Just never.
I mean, that's literally her job, is to not let that happen. But that makes it funny that she's letting that happen, and it's kind of a sign of how downtrodden things are.
In Cheesemongerville, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for the cheesemongers, they're just kind of like, whatever. Just because it's in my field, my only actual quibble with the show is that they gave, and I'm not sure who the young actor was. She did a great job. She was very funny. She had a good voice, and she was very funny, and she had good lines. But they just gave her the wrong job at the ballpark. She should have been the radio announcer for the team because every bit of her lines were kind of a Brockmire-esque, I'm kind of over being here, dramatic, funny language, and just no PA announcer would ever say that tragic, dispiriting loss or never mind.
And not to mention, talking about the sponsor in a negative way, the people who sponsor this whole ballpark and probably fuel this city with some sort of income, complaining about the cheese and the digestive issues and all the other stuff. And is there a doctor here? I thought that was pretty ridiculous. And you're right. She would have made a much better radio announcer. I think that would have been a lot more believable. But, again, this is an absurd episode, so it is what it is.
Yeah, it's completely absurd. And, her voice echoing through the stands. That was just the thing, like, no, that would never happen. But as a radio announcer, it's a really funny bit. And some of the I think maybe my favorite one-liner of the whole episode is when she's like, I'm having a hard time seeing the color green. The whole field is a gray palette to me. All the other colors are coming in. Just after she had described the numbness in her arm from eating all of the velvety cheese. And each of the previous 4 losses, she's just pouring cheese on things. Like she's got like a syrup container full of cheese that she's just pouring on her nachos. And she was funny. I mean, I actually thought it was quite funny, but they just should have made her the radio announcer, and then it's perfect. I don't know why they made her PA, but who cares? It's
minor detail
a meaningless
there.
quibble.
Are you a fan of squeezed cheese and canned cheese in general, Craig?
That'd be a big no. I like cheese. Don't get me wrong. Big fan of cheese. Now,
nachos and cheese at the ballpark. Yes or no?
Yeah, the nacho cheese at the ballpark. Yes.
Okay.
But you can't have a whole lot.
No, there's a limit. There's a limit, and that PA announcer far surpassed whatever that limit should be.
I think so, and yeah, beyond that, the processed melty cheese. I mean, I'm willing to entertain a whiz on a cheesesteak, on a proper Philly cheesesteak. But outside of those specific cases, ballpark nachos, whiz on a Philly cheesesteak, I'm gonna stay away from the ultra processed melty cheese. Stick to the real thing.
Agree. And I've got to say, not a sponsor, but the unexpected cheddar at Trader Joe's, Craig, is like one of my favorite cheeses of all time to enjoy on a cracker.
Unexpected cheddar?
Unexpected Cheddar. It's one of their in-house cheese brands. Cannot recommend it enough. So good. It's just got the perfect blend of the cheesiness, a little bit of sharpness. Try it. You will thank me later.
I'll put it on the list.
Yes,
I'm a big
please
Cheddar
do.
fan.
Yes, me too. The sharper, the better, as far as I'm concerned. You know who else I enjoyed in this episode was the woman who was sitting in the stands and talking about how Russ kind of got the yips. He got in his own head, and that's why he lost his fastball. And she's talking about, we've tried everything, the ritual tuggings, the slutty Babe Ruth. I don't know, for some reason, the slutty Babe Ruth thing just got me. I thought that was a really good one-liner here, too.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's a very casual callback to Baseball Annie and Bull Durham. You know, the woman in the stands who can solve the player through sexual tryst and delight. But yeah, the slutty Babe Ruth.
Yeah,
I immediately imagined the entire encounter, and I went there. Yeah.
So she was a good time. She seems like a really fun fangirl.
She's got stories. Let me tell you, she's got some stories to tell. Put a nickel in her and let her go.
Oh boy. As far as the murder case of the week, were you satisfied with the way the crime was committed, the way everything was solved overall?
Russ is going to jail. He's going to bring down the entire group. They're all going to lose their money. They're all going to be banned from baseball. Carl's going to have to sell his grill. He's going to have that chipped off his front teeth and pawned out. That's 100% happening. I thought the murder was clever in that on one level, you just don't think these guys are going to commit murder. Like that feels like a real stretch.
Yes.
So the idea that it's Felix not only extorting them for all the money, but then telling Russ, you had it all and you blew it. You're just a loser. And him feeling like he's seeing not only his present and his future, but his past in a way, like all being taken away as Domingo walks away. Him getting so mad that he's going to throw the ball. I liked that he would throw the ball at the dude's head and actually hit it is ludicrous. That he found 101 is funny, you know, and the fact that he then stops, he's like, whoa, I got my fastball back. Oh, I just killed this guy. Like,
I thought the same thing. The first thought is, oh, cool, fastball. Second thought is, oh, no, this guy could potentially be dead. And he thought pretty fast on his feet to really set up this as more of a crime scene and framing Rambo, the ball machine, for this. So I did think that was clever. And then to use as a callback, Charlie trying to trigger that same feeling in him to get him to throw it again and setting up the story with the scout. I really liked that. They had the guy with the radar gun out there looking like an actual scout clocking his thing. And there was just no way that Russ's ego was not going to have him throw that fastball out on the mound there.
Yeah. Again, Craig's Baseball Nerd History Corner. That was a direct call out. The scout wearing the Panama hat with the cigar and the radar gun. That's a call out to one of the most famous scouts in history, the Dodgers scout that found Fernando Valenzuela. And he was famous for being behind home plate. Mike Brito, for decades, was always behind home plate at Dodger Stadium, Panama hat, cigar, radar gun. He had a very famous look. He famously was the scout that found Fernando Valenzuela on some field in Mexico, you know, and had the Dodgers sign him and turn him into the superstar that he was in the early 80s. Again, I'm showing my age. I'm 52, but these are stories from my childhood. And Mike Brito was a very, very, very famous scout who wore a Panama hat and a cigar with that radar gun. So, like, that was another one of these, like, really fun. On just some level, he just, okay, guy with a hat, a cigar, and that's got to be a scout. Well, why? Because Mike Brito made that look synonymous with what a scout was.
And I had no idea. So I love, first of all, Craig's Nerdy Baseball Corner. That's fantastic, all these extra little tidbits you brought to the table. But it also just goes back to the fact that you really don't have to know a lot of the history or lore of these little baseball references they're throwing in there to appreciate this episode just for what it is at face value, or poker face value, I suppose. But Any other final thoughts on this episode as a whole before we get into ranking some of the guest stars and the episodes this season so far?
No, I mean, it's built with big, colorful, bright blocks. It's put together simply. It's a 9-piece puzzle, the Poker Face. It's never going to be overly elaborate. And as such, you give them all the creative license to do all the fun things that they do. I mean, just for example, how hard would a ball have to be hit to leave a ballpark, go over the outfield fence, go over the back fence, and still be rising to go through a window of an office building and have enough strength to hit somebody and really bop them? These things are ludicrous. If you actually try to be like, well, that can't happen. But that's the worst possible way to watch Poker Face. Watch Poker Face is just to have a good time. And Poker Face is a good time. I really enjoy the show. I think it's fun and funny and light and perfectly paced and toned. And as such, it was a trifle that I enjoyed consuming.
Yes, and this episode was only about 48 minutes. I appreciate that each episode is as long as it needs to be without stretching it out in an unnecessary way. So I appreciated that. And Craig, we're getting 12 episodes of Poker Face this season, which I don't know about you, but the 2 extras from season 1, since we only got 10, I'm excited we're getting more. And I like that some of these shows are offering more episodes. The rankings of the episodes so far in Poker Face season 2. Which one has been your absolute favorite?
So this one's on top for me. And I think they've all been good so far this year. In fact, I'd say they've all been quite good. As I said at the beginning, I was happy to get rid of the mob chase trope.
Yes.
And I thought that was the only thing that kind of dragged down the premiere episode. I see you've got that ranked as your second behind Hometown Hero. I think that's probably right because Cynthia Erivo was so good and it was very funny.
Yes.
And it was a great elaborate plot as well. The only thing I didn't like was, Charlie getting shot at times in ridiculous fashion.
The plot armor of it all. Yeah, she is wearing layers of plot armor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, just spoiling yours, Hometown Hero, Games Afoot, Last Looks third, Whack-A-Mole fourth, Taste of Human Blood fifth. I think that's exactly right. I think I like Whack-A-Mole because of Rhea Perlman and Richard Kind. I thought it was an excellent episode. So I could theoretically flip that with Last Looks. But honestly, I'd rate them so close to one another that the entire ranking is arbitrary anyway. I would just say I'd put them all in a very close pack. Hometown Hero was just the one I enjoyed the very most, and Taste of Human Blood was definitely the one that I enjoyed the least while still thinking it was funny. It was so broad that it was just kind of like, okay. And staring into the gator's eyes and the trip of it all, it was fine. It was fine. But that's 5th out of 5 for me.
And to your point, I would also rank a lot of these very close together. I thought to myself I was going to keep The Game Is Afoot at the top of the list for the entire season simply because of the nature of Cynthia Erivo playing all 5 characters. But I've decided to put Hometown Hero number 1 because of the baseball of it all. I love baseball and I thought this hit really hard. And for that reason, I'm just keeping Cynthia Erivo as my number 1 guest star and have a feeling that she will probably stay there. But I also loved Last Looks. I thought Giancarlo Esposito and Katie Holmes were great. I loved the funeral of it all and that ending scene, which was kind of giving House of Usher vibes with the big fireworks and everything. I thought that episode was just fantastic. I love funeral-related things. And the Taste of Human Blood will probably stay last for me if I'm guessing. I think Kumail Nanjiani was fantastic. Gabby Hoffman was good, but it was the most absurd of all of these, I think, so far. The alligator and the potty humor and all that wasn't my favorite. So far this season as a whole, the first 3 episodes, I thought, what a strong start to season 2.
Yeah, me too. And they've just got the formula now, so they can keep doing Poker Face as long as Natasha Lyonne wants to do it, as long as Ryan Johnson wants to keep the project going, and NBC wants to keep the project going. They've got a formula. It works. they're obviously clued in. I mean, I know just from knowing Rafi, like they literally go watch old episodes of Columbo, and do the research and get in. So that's what, they know where their source material is coming from. They know what they're working with, what their main ingredients are, and they know how to put together a tasty burger. And that's what this is. There's my other analogy. It's a tasty burger. It's a thrill ride that you've got memorized every twist and turn, but you enjoy it nonetheless. And so I love Poker Face. I'm sure it'll wind up being in one of those like 8 to 10 spots, at the end of the year when you're doing a top 10, because it's not trying to be prestige TV. It's not trying to be the smartest thing.
Why don't we finish this off with our guest star rankings? I've been just tracking kind of my top 10 of the season so far. Why don't you tell me, Craig, who your top guest stars are so far this season?
Just loosely, I think Cynthia Erivo obviously had the most to do. And it's very hard to play 5 characters, but I thought she played 2 of those 5 very well. Hamber. Yeah, I thought Hamber was hilarious, and the Felicity Price character. And the Apple Orchard, I forget which version of her.
Delia, I think.
Yeah. D, right? She was Delia, but the Delia and the Hamber I thought were really, really well done. And then the DJ one is broad. The French
professor.
Those are super, super broad, but that's cool. Let's see. I'd probably go Richard Kind next. I just absolutely love him doing anything he does, and I thought he was great. Probably then Giancarlo. I thought Simon Rex was great. Katie Holmes was really good. Simon Helberg is almost more of a main or like side cast member. Carol Kane I thought was terrific. Gabby Hoffman's really good. I didn't love that episode, so I didn't love that character. And along those lines, I'd actually probably put Kumail at the bottom of that list just because of the blonde wig that kind of just took me out of almost everything that he did in the episode. I mean, it was such a what was the name of the Tiger Joe? Who was the guy? Well, he's kind of doing Tiger King, but a gator.
That was not my favorite episode, but I've actually got Kumail floating in the middle of my list, probably around 4 or 5 somewhere, just because of the nature of playing that very Florida character, the mullet, the accent. I thought he did a really good job.
Yeah, and to be clear, Simon Rex should be right there in the middle for me as well. I thought he was really, really good in what he did. Yeah. He's probably the least well known of this list, but he did a good job.
Yeah, he nailed it, especially to your point physically. He really just checked all those boxes of a kind of washed up picture. I think he really hit the nail on the head with that. And for me, Cynthia Erivo, number 1, I think she's going to stay that way. I had then Katie Holmes and Giancarlo. For me, they could be tied at second. I think they just had a really good on-screen presence together. Kumail, Simon Rex, Simon Helberg. I put BJ Novak as number 7. I appreciated his cartoon in the acid situation of it all. That was great. And to your point of him also being in The Office and the mention of The Office, I think that's just really smart. And then I've got Carol Kane, Richard Kind, and Rhea Perlman. I did knock off Jasmine Guy, Gabby Hoffman, and John Mulaney from the list. I don't know. I expected more from John Mulaney. I don't watch his shows, but everyone's John Mulaney this, John Mulaney that. He was fine, but he didn't blow me out of the water playing that corrupt FBI agent.
I guess I'd put him somewhere in that list somewhere. I mean, I thought he was good. His whole milk thing, that was kind of funny. He isn't the first or the second person I think of in that episode. I think of Kind and Perlman before that.
Yeah. The next episode is called Sloppy Joseph. We are going to be halfway through the season. We're going to be on episode 6 of 12. And I just want to thank you, Craig, for joining me for this episode. We've been talking about getting together for a video. And again, I don't think there could have been a more perfect fit than this one with the baseball of it all. And your partner being a writer on Poker Face, just really perfect. So I always appreciate your insights, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, I loved it. Miss our Friday get-togethers. Love being here anytime.
Definitely. And Craig, tell everybody where they can follow you.
I'm probably, I guess, most active on Instagram in terms of social media. 619 Sports and Life is my handle there. 619 Sports and Life. is where you can find me there. You can find me on Blue Sky at 619 Sports for occasional skeets or whatever we're calling the posts there. But I host the Padres Hot Tub podcast. If you happen, this is a media show, so probably not. But for the random person who's a San Diego Padres fan, myself, Rafe Cantor, Chris Reed, who is actor on Sons of Anarchy and many other shows. Look up his IMDb. We host that show on Mondays, and we have a Patreon that gives access to a whole slew of other things, post-game shows and call-in shows and everything. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. If you want to check that out, San Diego FC podcast coming soon.
Oh, another podcast. That's exciting. Are you doing anything with San Diego FC? Are you PA announcing or anything for them, or
no? I do PA for the Wave. The San Diego FC picked another young man who seems to be doing a good job. I'm usually in the supporter section at San Diego FC in the North End, wearing a crazy outfit, jumping around, dancing and singing and having a great time. But yeah, look for that coming up. Some more stuff on my socials about it next week. It's going to launch next week. But new soccer podcast coming out. Who knows? Maybe we'll get the media thing going once again before I get to soccer season in the fall. But it was a lot of fun doing daily radio, but good paycheck, but it was also a lot of work.
4 hours a day. That's a lot of talking.
Yeah, it is. And it was a lot of work putting it together as well. So, happy to be what I'm doing right now, having a lot of fun.
Yay. Well, really, thank you so much for joining. And if there are any other TV shows you would like to talk about this year, I'm always open. And maybe after the season of Poker Face, we could get together for a quick overall season ranking, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Love it. Yeah, let's do it.
Yay. Well, thank you, Craig. And to everybody else, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. And I will be back again soon. So stay tuned for more TV talk. Media Melanie, clicking off.